You, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Very good, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Richmond Hill. I would ask that we start this evening's meeting with the reading of the preamble, please.
Today's Committee of Adjustment meeting is hereby held as an electronic meeting in light of the current COVID-19 emergency. The COVID-19 emergency is the emergency declared by the Province of Ontario pursuant to Order in Council 518-2020, Ontario Regulation 5020 on March 17th, 2020, and by the City of Richmond Hill on March 20th, 2020, under the provisions of Section 701 and Section 41 of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. The Committee of Adjustment is authorized to hold this meeting electronically as a tribunal under the Statutory Powers and Procedures Act, in accordance with the Hearings and Tribunal Proceedings Temporary Measures Act. Due to efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 and protect all individuals, city facilities are not presently open to the public to attend Committee of Adjustment meetings. The Committee of Adjustment for the City of Richmond Hill has been appointed by Council to consider applications for minor variance and consent in accordance with the Planning Act. The committee's decision may be appealed to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. All appeals and associated fees must be filed directly with the Secretary Treasurer in accordance with the Planning Act. To be notified of a Local Planning Appeal Tribunal hearing, you must request a copy of the committee's decision in writing. Written comments. The public may submit written correspondence regarding agenda matters by email to committeeofadjustment@richmondhill.ca. All written correspondence received by 4:30 p.m. today has been provided to the committee electronically. Electronic delegations. Delegates are reminded to please mute your microphone and turn off video until it is your turn to speak. Please make sure your microphone is not muted when you are speaking. If members do not have questions, or after all questions have been asked, your delegation is over. Please sign off of Zoom or hang up the phone once the committee has made a decision on your application. You can watch the rest of the meeting on our live stream, and the clerk may remove any delegate who does not sign off of Zoom.
Thank you. Our Secretary Treasurer is Mrs. Jamie Hope Herman. Our Assistant Secretary Treasurer is Ms. Linda Asikas, and assisting us this evening from planning is Ms. Amanda Dunn. Do we have any conflicts of interest this evening, gentlemen? I see none. And do we have any requests for adjournment or withdrawals?
Here, Mr. Chair, we do not.
Okay, in that case, we'll move on to item A, our first variance, and that would be A063/20 at 224 Lenox Avenue. Do we have any additional correspondence on this application?
Here, Mr. Chair, we do not.
Thank you. Okay, our applicant for 224 Lenox Avenue.
Yep, I am the applicant.
Okay,
Hello.
we can hear you. We can hear you.
So am I supposed to say something?
Yes, present your application, yes. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so the application is that I'm building a home there in the lot, and it's a two-story house, and it's detached. So do I have to go through all the details, or how detailed does it have to be? Sorry.
Well, I'll leave that up to you. You can go through each of the variances you're requesting, or you can safely assume that we have read them. It's up to you.
Okay, so I will assume that you have read them. So the variance, according to the staff who I was working with, I am within the variance that my neighbors have been doing as well. So that is the design that we went with. Do you need more information?
Well, if we do, we'll ask you for sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have anyone in the audience that wishes to address this application at 224 Lenox Avenue?
Mr. Chair, we do not.
And do we have any further comments, questions, concerns from our planning department?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do not.
And gentlemen, same question. In that case, I will entertain a motion. Mr. Duretzi.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would move that minor variance application A063/20 at 224 Lenox Avenue be approved, subject to the terms and conditions in the city's staff report.
Moved by member Duretzi, seconded by member Gossi. All in favor? I see 4 hands. Very good. It's approved. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Can I drop now or?
Yep.
Okay.
You're
all right.
all
Thank
done.
you very much. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Our next application is application A064/20 at 35 Starlight Crescent. Do we have any additional correspondence on this application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we received a letter of objection on February 9th, 2021 from the resident of 10 Elva Court.
Thank you. Do we have our presenter?
Yes, sir. My name is Victor Gidberg. I'm an architect and I'm representing the owner of this property.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so application in front of you is to build a new 2-story dwelling with integral garage at the lower level. And we're seeking relief from 6 different variances. I just want to explain that if you look at the site plan, at the back of the property, we have a patio, which otherwise wouldn't be included in the coverage or setbacks calculation, but because owner wanted to utilize the space underneath of this patio and use it as an extension of the basement, a patio was included in coverage calculation. Otherwise, coverage would comply. And also it affects the variance for rear yard setback, which is reduced from 7.62 to 7.51. Front yard setback variance, basically in this area, front yard setback measured as an established building line, which is line connected to corners of 2 adjacent houses. So we have slight encroachment on the left side into this line, but in general, majority of the front facade, front wall is behind this line. So we thought that this encroachment is could be considered as a minor variance because the lot was not that deep and we wanted to push house a little bit forward and keep more space at the backyard. Variance for the building height, which is exceeded by 1 foot. Basically, the type of roof on this house is a mansard roof with flat portion on the top, and as per building code, we have to provide 2% minimum slope for flat roof. So this excess of 1 foot is just for this 2% slope, which is not visible from the street. So you can see from the street is a deck of mansard roof, and this slope is raising up by 1 foot in the middle of the house, and not visible from the street. It does not affect appearance of the house. Also have front encroachment. That's variances because we have elevated first floor to accommodate garages at the lower level, and we need more steps to reach the first floor from the grade. Also, the grade in the property is falling from right to left, and that basically calls for additional steps as well. Yeah, so that's basically concludes my presentation. I would be glad to answer any of your questions if you have them.
Thank you. Do we have does anyone in the audience wish to address this application at 35 Starlight Crescent?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there are none.
And do we have any further comments from our planning department?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do not.
Thank you. Any comments, concerns, questions, gentlemen? In that case, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Master.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that application number A064/20 located at 35 Starlight Crescent be approved with all the conditions contained therein.
Moved by member Master, seconded by member Duretzi. All in favor? I see 4 hands. It's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next application is application A065/20 at 108 Spruce Avenue. Do we have any additional correspondence on this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We received a letter of objection on February 4th, 2021 from 110 Spruce Avenue. And we received a letter of objection on February 9th, 2021 from 106 Spruce Avenue.
Thank you. Do we have our presenter, our applicant?
Yes, it's me again,
Okay.
Victor Gidberg, 33 Belvedere Crescent in Richmond Hill, representing the owner of the property. Yeah, the application in front of you is to build again two-story residential house with integral garage. And we asking for 3 variances. It's 1 foot reduction on each side yard setback from 152 meters to 1.2 meters, and also encroachment of the front porch into the minimum front yard setback by additional 3 feet. So basically, this house is very typical for the area. Like there are many lots with similar structures in this street and adjacent streets. The variance of this small reduction in side yard setbacks was granted numerous times by this committee. And I guess the main reason for that is because this street is a mixture of different lots starting from 100-foot frontage to 60, 75, and this one of the smallest one is 45-foot frontage lot, even so it's very deep, but frontage is small, and we feel that side yard setback can be slightly reduced to be in proportion with the lot size and to accommodate decent layout for proposed building. So alternatively, if we would keep it narrower, then the house probably will be longer and will be bigger impact on obstructing the view for adjacent properties. We push the house slightly backwards, so the front porch aligns with the front porch in shape of the balcony aligns with 2 adjacent properties. But again, because of the configuration of configuration of the house and the elevated first floor, we need extra steps to reach first floor from the driveway. So that's why we have this front porch encroachment. Again, that could be avoided if house pushed further back, but we don't want to do that to keep it more or less aligned with adjacent houses and minimize impact at backyard obstruction. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I can say about this project, and ready to answer if any of your questions.
Very good, thank you. Does anyone in the audience wish to address this application at 108 Spruce Avenue?
Here, Mr. Chair, there are none.
And do we have any further comments from planning?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no further comments.
Thank you. And gentlemen, comments, concerns, questions? Mr. Duretzi.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any concerns per se with the requested variances, but I'm not a big fan of the reverse flow driveways, and neither is the city's engineering department. So just a word of caution, you might get a little bit of pushback from the city's engineering department when you go in to submit for a grading plan. So just wanted to let you know that.
No, I understand. We don't have reverse driveway. We have positive slope from the house towards the street. It's about 2% sloped positively from garage door down to the street.
Well, not according to the elevations that are on your site plan. So perhaps the site plan is incorrect. There's a grade of 198 at the top of the driveway, 198.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's typo, but that wasn't our intention. We will maintain positive slope.
Okay, great. Very good.
Anything else? In that case, I'll entertain a motion.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to raise a motion that item C, minor variance application A065/20 at 108 Spruce Avenue approved, given the terms and conditions in the staff report.
Moved by member Gossi, seconded by member Duretzi. All in favor? Approved. Thank you very much. I see four hands.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Our next application is application A066/20 at 68 Birch Avenue. Do we have any additional correspondence on this application?
Mr. Chair, we received letters of objection from the resident of 73 Birch Avenue. We received a letter of objection from 74 Birch Avenue, and we received a letter of objection from the resident of 67 Drummer Crescent.
Thank you. Someone's got a lot of noise in the background there. We have our presenter for this particular application at 68 Birch Avenue.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of committee and council. Can you see me? Am I on? Can you hear me?
No, you're not on. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay, so why am I? Let's see. Let's just 1 second, please. Live on. I don't know why. I was on for a second and I'm off now. Okay, I don't want to touch anything just in case I do something wrong. As long as you can hear me, though, that's okay, right?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
It's up to you.
Good evening. My name is Giorgio Lobos, representing the file in front of us this evening. We are asking for a minor variance on the front yard setback. I believe I have forwarded a copy of the site plan to Jamie, to you, Mr. Chair, if Jamie can sort of assist us on the site plan that I forwarded to her, just to showing the impact of the variance that we're asking for. Now, we understand and recognize that it's a minor variance with all due respect, but we have to understand and recognize the characteristics of the property, the area, the location of the cul-de-sac where it starts and how it impacts on our front yard setback request, and understand and recognize this property is on TRCA lands, also restricting us that we cannot push the building back because of the top of the bank and so forth. We have started this process almost a year ago, dealing with TRCA, dealing with their requirements, which is a very long list of them, as far as vegetation restoration planning, site planning and design fees, a grading plan, erosion and settlement controls, geotechnical sort of investigations and soil assessments, arborist reports, engineerings, and so forth. So we have spent a lot of time engaged to perform their demands and their needs to satisfy TRCA in accordance to their requirements, and also to maintain our sort of integrity of the property. I know that there is a motion from city councilor and the opposition to defer the application. But before we do that, I'd like to ask a question before you do sort of make a judgment on deferral on timelines. Very important for us to understand and recognize the time that we're facing if this deferral motion is granted. As far as we're concerned, in our proposal, we feel that the application is minor in nature and recognize just the fact of the characteristics that we have that we're facing with, the lot characteristics in both front and rear. Again, I don't have any other sort of correspondence. The staff report is all positive from everywhere from initially internally. It's a very simple application, we believe. And again, I know we're getting pushback, but again, recognizing the pushback, we respectfully understand the neighbors' rights to sort of requests such a referral. But again, given the characteristics, we feel that our application is positive in so many ways.
Thank you. Does anyone in the audience wish to address this application at 68 Birch Avenue?
Here, Mr. Chair, we have Mr. Swishberg with us.
Madam Secretary, if you don't mind, I would like to stand down until the others have had their say. Can I be heard? Hello?
I'm sorry, you would like to stand down for what?
I would like to go last in my submissions, Mr. Chairman. I understand there are others who wish to speak.
I'm sorry, I have to admit that I'm going to have to turn up my volume or something because I can't hear what you're saying.
Through you, Mr. Chair, he would like to delay his presentation until others have spoken or are interested in speaking on this file.
Thank you,
all
Mr.
right.
Gossi. Yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Do we have another presenter, Madam Secretary?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our next presentation would be from Mr. Swishberg. Mr. Swishberg, we have yourself and we have Zach Swishberg. Would you like to go together or did you want to do them separately?
My son can go first.
Okay, that's fine. So we will start with Zach Swishberg, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon, or good evening rather. My name is Zach Schweisberg. I was a resident at 73 Birch for roughly 10 years. I'm speaking today about the erosion implications that have happened over the last 10 years to my knowledge. During that time, I did finish school and I now work in the development industry as a civil engineer. So I am rather familiar with consultations with the TRCA, their requirements, and issues with erosion. So what I'd like to say is that since I've lived at that residence, we've noticed that the erosion on the banks adjacent to the watercourse, which is part of the, I believe, a tributary of the East Don River, over time, the banks have gotten steeper due to erosion from water runoff coming from the surface, but also down at the creek level itself, because due to mass storm flows, the water level rises and really eats away at the banks, which exposes more tree roots and leads to more erosion. So I'd just like to add that this is an issue over the time. We've seen the top of the 73 Birch property on the west side slowly get eroded down and the banks get steeper. And this has also been recognized by the TRCA as they've been working, I think, for a period of around 3 years to add some erosion sediment control measures to the creek itself. to help stabilize the soils and also add retaining walls in certain areas. I think some armor stone to prevent further erosion and prevent further steepening of the banks, which would lead to trees falling down and sediments getting into the watercourse, which could be bad for habitats. So I just wanted to highlight that I have seen this being a problem that has just worsened over time. And that's all I'd like to add this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have the other gentleman ready to present his case?
Would that be me? Is there anyone
be
else,
you.
Madam Secretary?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Swishberg, you are next to present.
All right, thank you. I'd like to introduce myself. I've been a practicing lawyer for 35 years. My wife and I have owned Birch for 10 years. This is a unique cul-de-sac for reasons that I'll go into shortly. May I assume, Mr. Wilton, as per your prior case, that the members have read the materials? And
Yes.
and my opposition statement specifically?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to start off by giving you a little bit more graphic view of specifically the nature of the land, because in my submissions, the planning department's statement is so sparse about the nature of this property as to be somewhat misleading. I'm referring to the report of Mr. Ernie Sperling, an Ontario land surveyor, that I filed with the secretary. And if you could bear with me, I don't know if I could use the share screen here, but I'm referring to figure 1 on Mr. Sperling's report, which is page 4 of 10.
To you, Mr. Chair, we will bring that up. Just a moment, please.
Figure 1 is a full color drawing, an overhead view of Birch Avenue and the surrounding area. It's called Figure 1, Typical Cul-de-sac.
Okay.
I think that's it. All right, so what we're looking at here, what Mr. Sperling has done, is he's taken an overhead view of the cul-de-sac in question. I'd like to point out a couple of things. One, you can see at the upper part in the middle, the big copse of trees. Those trees are, for the most part, to be torn down in the proposed development. That would, of course, increase the problem that's already been identified as being of concern regarding erosion. But that's not the remarkable thing about this figure. What Mr. Sperling has done is he's, in red, he's superimposed what is a typical cul-de-sac in Richmond Hill, meeting a specific bylaw provision called R3A. As you can see, the red outline is significantly larger than the actual cul-de-sac at Birch. As Mr. Sperling says in his survey, just a few pages before this, the Birch Avenue cul-de-sac resembles more closely what is called a temporary turnaround and is not a cul-de-sac that conforms with either provision R3A or Ontario Building Code 3.2.5.3 sub 1 sub A and B. That's a lot of numbers, but what it basically means is you can't turn around there. Ordinary cars can't turn around there. Emergency cars cannot turn around there. Waste management vehicles cannot turn around there. The Sperling report concludes, the current configuration of Birch Avenue is inadequate to allow even a normal passenger vehicle to efficiently maneuver, let alone an emergency vehicle which commands a larger footprint. For non-resident vehicles to exit Birch Avenue as continuing in a forward direction is denied by its geometric configuration. The options available are to maneuver onto driveways, reverse out, or not to enter and continue to the end of Civvydale, which you can also see in this plan. Civvydale is also a cul-de-sac. I also put in my statement of opposition under paragraph 2 under the heading safety, a quote from the National Fire Protection Association regarding its own provisions for dealing with fire lanes and fire access when it must be done in a dead end. The NFPA provisions say, it is preferable for a fire lane to have access at both ends to a road. If that is not possible and a fire lane must be made into a dead end, a fire lane turnaround is put in. It must be large enough for a fire truck to turn around to head out the same way it came in. You can't do that in this cul-de-sac. And compounding the problem, gentlemen, is...
Mr. Schweisberg, if I may interrupt, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about is you've been there for at least 10 years. Your son mentioned that he'd been at this residence for at least 10 years. What have you folks done about this? This is not something that's new.
Mr. Wilton, we're reacting to the inappropriateness of the proposed construction given the compromised infrastructure of the roadway. Until this, there was absolutely no problem with what was going on there. This proposal is a substantial upset to the complexion of the neighborhood and in no objective measure is desirable for the appropriate development or the use of this land, given the compromise existing on the roadway infrastructure, for safety reasons and for environmental reasons. Now, under Section 45, Sub 1 of the Planning Act, it is your jurisdiction to determine whether it is desirable. I emphasize the word desirable, not the word acceptable used by the Planning Department in paragraph 3 of the conclusion in their own report. Desirable. And I'll also tell you another couple other reasons why it's undesirable on top of what I've just touched upon. Bearing in mind that all of this is triggered by the development that's being proposed. The first additional factor with respect to its undesirability is if you move the front yard setback as is proposed by the applicant, you're going to get spillover onto the street. It's inevitable because the area within which they can work on the property is reduced. Now, I want to show you a couple of photographs of what happens when there's spillover onto Birch Avenue. And the photographs I'm about to show you aren't even in the cul-de-sac where the problem is far worse because of the short radius. So if I can turn to the secretary, I'm going to ask you to bring up for the members the following photograph. It is image ending in number 50075. Could you call that up, please?
Here, Mr. Chair, we're working on it. Just be a moment.
Just while you are those the photographs you sent us today?
I sent a lot of photographs.
With construction on the road?
I sent a lot of photographs of construction on the road. There was a series taken in July and August 2020, to which I'm about to refer you. And then there's another photograph from this morning regarding an obstruction by Enbridge in the cul-de-sac itself. I think there's two photographs in particular that are vividly illustrating the problem at hand.
I had the same thing on my neighbor's house over the past week, right beside me on my street. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
You have my sympathies, sir. I don't think the full impact to you is going to be effective until you actually look at two photographs in particular.
Mr. Swishberg, which other photo did you want us?
Just stand by for a moment. So this photograph, gentlemen, was taken in August 2020 with respect to a construction in the linear part of Birch, about a quarter kilometer away from the cul-de-sac to the east. This area was impassable. It was impassable by construction vehicles. It was, by emergency vehicles, both ambulance and fire. That's problematic because there's no other way for an ambulance or fire vehicle to get into Birch or onto Civydale. Now imagine moving this kind of obstruction to the mouth of the cul-de-sac. Even if the obstruction is temporary, it creates a significant safety risk, which is exacerbated by moving the front lot setback the way that is proposed because of the increased risk of spillover. So imagine, if you will, this obstruction at the mouth of the cul-de-sac and a poor fellow at the end of Civydale, which is about another half a kilometer to the south of this cul-de-sac, stemming off of it as you've seen. The poor fellow has a heart attack and his wife calls 911 and Mackenzie dispatches a paramedic with due haste, but the paramedic can't get through because of an obstruction. And the paramedics, desperate as they are, grab their gurney and run as fast as possible down to the end of Civydale to find that the patient, well, he's been in VTAC for 5 minutes, and even if they can revive him, chances are he's going to suffer permanent cognitive impairment. That is a foreseeable scenario with respect to the obstructions that are inevitable on the cul-de-sac. And now, Madam Secretary, I'd like you to call up the following photograph, which I took myself yesterday, ending in number 43597. Now, this obstruction isn't even as significant as the one in the photograph I showed you just now from August. This is just yesterday. This is the beginning of what's going to happen if you allow this variance. And this is just one contractor. No emergency vehicle access is possible. Whether it's temporary or intermittent is not the point. This is a manifest safety issue for the 3 houses in the Birch cul-de-sac and the 17 houses on the Civydale cul-de-sac. The fundamental problem we have here, gentlemen, is this cul-de-sac is unique. It's too small, it's not a true cul-de-sac, and there's nowhere else to go because of the adjacent creek. Now you're talking about a proposed development of 10 to 15,000 square foot house. I've done the math. The new footprint is 409 square meters. That is 4 times the size of the old footprint. Multiply that by 2 floors, you've got 10,518 square feet. If there is a true 10.33 or 10.66 height, as proposed in the application, that would mean a 3-floor habitable residence of a total of 15,000 square feet. That is so in excess of anything else in the area, there's simply no basis for comparison. The proposed development is simply unsuitable given the constraints of the neighborhood and the compromised cul-de-sac. What I'm asking for today is a deferral of the application because I have put in motion the following. As you can see, I've retained Ernie Sperling, a surveyor. The OLS would like to complete his investigation. All I was able to do, given the short notice provided to me with this application, is file his preliminary report, which you have, and which is conclusive about what I'm saying concerning the uniqueness and compromised nature of this cul-de-sac. I would also like to meet with the TRCA. I have spoken there with Mr. Phil Wolframe, who is the engineering technologist who dealt with the erosion problem experienced at the creek, of which my son was speaking. Phil Wolframe was not consulted by his colleagues at the TRCA to date. I've spoken also with Mr. Anthony Sun at the TRCA, who explained to me that Mr. Wolfram was not consulted, but to his credit, he's agreed to meet with me and my experts. I have also retained Paul Rue, REW, professional engineer with Rubicon Environmental and an expert in soil and wastewater management to assess the environmental impact of the proposed construction and heavy vehicles and a substantial foundation of quadruple the size on the property in question. Although I have been a litigator myself for 35 years, I'm not a planning act specialist. I have retained Nick Makos of Black Sutherland, who is a planning act lawyer, and he simply hasn't had time to prepare given the short notice we received on this application. And for all of those reasons, I believe not only that the application fundamentally fails to meet the test, which is your jurisdiction under section 45(1) of the Planning Act to ensure its desirability, in your opinion, for the appropriate use of the land. And secondly, apart from the merits, I would like this matter to be deferred so I can complete the necessary examinations by PEng, because that so far has not been conducted. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. My one question to you is you do realize that what we're talking about here is a project that, if it had not been pushed 5 feet forward, would be proceeding regardless of coming, despite having to come to us, it would have proceeded in accordance with the bylaws of the town or the city of Richmond Hill.
I must disagree with you, sir. It would not have proceeded regardless, because the minute this came to my attention, I would have stopped it. This is just one step in the process.
Oh, okay.
What's before you, and I said this straight out, I acknowledged it in my written submissions. I'll read it to you. I recognize that the matters raised in this opposition concern larger issues than the relatively simple minor variance sought in the within application. However, if the proposed development is untenable, as I'm suggesting, the proposed minor variance is moot.
So through you, Mr. Chair, if I can interject just for a minute in the essence of time. So for some reason, I get the impression that this is going to be an LPAT issue ultimately, regardless of which direction it goes. So Mr. Schweisberg is seeking that we defer this application. Maybe that's something that we should be considering. Now, that being said, even if we do defer the application and there's time for planning to work with all necessary parties, eventually this is going to come back to us. And regardless of our decision, I see it going to LPAT anyway.
Thank you. I have another question that has to do with the site plan that was issued with this application. It shows the cul-de-sac, but it also shows that Birch Avenue extends, at least the road allowance extends further to the west. Has there ever been
not a site plan, sir? It's a right-of-way sketch.
Mr. Schweisberg, has there ever been any talk or discussion of a bridge, of continuing that road through to Bathurst Street?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge,
In
okay.
fact, sir, from what I know about it, and I was discussing this very issue today with my surveyor, going back to the very beginning, why this was constructed the way it was without a bridge, which would have been an option back in the 70s. I haven't seen that plan, but it would have been an option back then. It isn't now, because over the decades, we're talking 50 years, the erosion situation in that creek has accelerated over time. I'm not convinced it would even be viable to build a bridge. There have been no studies, there have been no contemporary proposals to build a bridge. And I think the complexities of that would make it an untenable development. I think what we're going to see, even after all the experts' reports come in, is that this project, this proposed development is not tenable given the infrastructure restrictions of the environment and the compromised cul-de-sac.
Thank you. Okay, I do have a question for Mr. Lalos, please. Our applicant. Is he still with us?
Can you hear me? Mr.
Yes.
Chair? Hi.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I was the unmute button came on. Okay. I'm a bit perplexed on the concerns of Mr. Swishen. Again, so is it?
I have a question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
My question is, why is there for sale sign on your property?
We don't, that I don't have the answer, sir, but if you give me a minute, I can call the Mazda Homes and find out for you, but I don't have that answer for you, sir. But as far as I know, this is in front of us today. I'm moving forward. I don't understand why the for sale sign is there. It could be the market itself. I don't understand. But as far as we're concerned, we're proposing an application to move forward for development. So,
very good.
Would you like me to address the concerns brought up here tonight? Because again, I'll try, but I don't believe they're going to have any variable sort of implications on the overall outcome. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we understand and recognize, given the characteristics, given the cul-de-sac, on the existing infrastructure not being suitable to a standard cul-de-sac, it is what we're working with. Public transportation can also take the front yard buffer and build and make the larger cul-de-sac. They're just going to lose the front yard of green space. They could do that if they want to. But at the end of the day, what is the drive here? Is it a personal drive that to stop development? Because if we didn't have any variance in front of us, which you find is in minor nature, we can't build a home on this property. We can't develop this property because we haven't done a due diligence of providing TRCA all the erosion reports, everything that they need. They're experts according to and I'm sure the consultants we use are just as expertly as the opposition's potential associates. We feel that there's more to it than this, and we really feel that we should not. We like the committee to make the decision, not for an adjournment, and we'll follow what happens afterwards. I mean, I believe we're caught between a hard and a rock place here.
Thank you.
If I may be permitted a brief reply.
All right, last one.
I just want to address the new things that the applicant has raised. This is no personal drive of mine, gentlemen. I live across the street, but that's not what's going on. What's going on is the concerns for the safety of the approximately 20 homeowners that will be affected by the proposed development. My second and last point is this. The applicant says, what do you mean we can't develop our property? That's the nub of the problem. They want to do what they want to do. They are the ones driven. A developer, Mazrahi Homes, is driven to profit from this endeavor. That is a right that must be balanced against the rights of the homeowners that will be affected by the adverse impact this proposed development proposes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Can I say something, Mr. Chair, to that?
No, it's going to, I'm now going to go move on to our engineering department and to our committee members. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Okay, do we have any further comments from our planning department?
She's not going to.
Planning, any further
you.
comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no further comments.
Thank you. Gentlemen, comments, questions, concerns? Mr. Duretzi.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that this committee is looking at a staff report with one minor variance on it for the construction of a single-family dwelling. I think the opposition letter that was prepared, there's enough information there for that deferral. It seems reasonable. It also seemed that the applicant was amenable to a deferral if that was the direction that this had moved, but it sounds like he now would prefer a decision. So I'm comfortable with deferring the application, and I'm also comfortable with making a decision this evening.
Okay.
Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Any further comments, gentlemen? Mr. Master.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm comfortable making a decision today.
Mr. Gossi?
I am as well.
Very good. In that case, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Master.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that application A066/20 located at 68 Birch Avenue be approved with all the conditions contained therein.
Moved by member Master, seconded by member Duretzi. All in favor? I see 4 hands approving. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee.
Our next application is application A067/20.
I'm done. And actually, this is
We have one background. Can somebody help us? Thank you. Our next application is application A067/20 at 34 Denham Drive. Do we have any additional correspondence on this application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we received a letter of support on February 10th from 32 Denham Drive.
Thank you. And do we have our applicant?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Frank Rotundo. I'm acting as the agent on behalf of the homeowner. So our minor variance application is for a cabana at the rear of the property, and we're looking to increase the height to 3.56 meters opposed to the 2.75 that's allowed. We believe that we have no impact on any of the neighboring properties, as the backyard areas are fairly large in scale, and our setbacks from the rear lot line of 1.7 meters and 1.4 meters from the side lot line have no impact on any of the swales or drainage along the property line. So therefore, we feel our proposal is minor and meets the general intent of the bylaw. If there's any questions, I can answer.
Very good. Thank you.
That's it.
Do we have any further comments from planning department?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no further comments.
Thank you. Gentlemen, comments, questions, concerns? In that case, I would entertain a motion. Mr. Gossi.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to raise a motion to approve item E, minor variance application A067/20 at 34 Danham Drive, subject to terms and conditions in the staff report.
Moved by member Gossi, seconded by member Master. All in favor? I see 4 hands. It's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next application is application A001/21 at 27 Prince Arthur Avenue. Do we have any further correspondence on this application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we received letters of support on February 9th, 2021.
Thank you. And our applicant. Just a question while we're waiting for our applicant, to our secretary treasurer, is there a reason why we have not seen any video coming up with any of our applicants tonight? Or is it just me?
No,
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe it would be the applicant and our agent's choice whether or not to share that, to share their video.
All right, it's just that this is the first time we've seen it all night long where no one has come up. Okay, that's fine. Do we have the Mr. Sibinek there?
Yes, sir. Yes, I am. I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the dwelling was constructed in 2005 under permit 05-13639. It appears a construction error occurred resulting in the part of the foundation wall being incorrectly placed along the interior side yard. The owners, after purchasing the property, produced an as-built survey to close an open permit. The survey identified a deficiency of 0.02 meters into the interior side yard setback. So this is the one southwest corner of the building, and it's deficient by 0.02 meters. The owners found out about that and they initiated a minor variance application to seek relief for the side yard setback and to hopefully recognize the existing building, which has existed for 15 years. The relief that we seek is the rear corner, as I mentioned, of the west property line. The front corner complies with the setback. We have letters of support from neighbors at 15, 21, and 33 Prince Arthur. And we feel that the proposed variance, it's sort of like a sliced part of the setback conforms in the front, but at the rear it doesn't. But we feel that's still in keeping with the zoning bylaw and the compatibility of the surrounding area. As I mentioned, we have letter of support as well. So I'm ready to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Does anyone in the audience wish to address this application at 27 Prince Arthur Avenue?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we have none.
And any further comments from planning?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no further comments.
Gentlemen, comments, questions, concerns? My only question is, how many inches is 0.06 feet?
minor inches.
Oh, okay. Must be what, 3/4 of an inch?
Not even.
Yeah, somewhere around there. I will entertain a motion. Mr. Master.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that application number A001/21 located at 27 Prince Arthur Avenue be approved with conditions contained therein.
Moved by member Master, seconded by member Duretzi. All in favor? Approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, committee.
Our next application is application A037/20 at 4 Cynthia Crescent. Do we have any additional correspondence on this application?
Dear Mr. Chair, we do not.
Thank you.
And if we can just have a minute, our agent, we're having some technical difficulties, so just a moment.
Okay, we can wait.
Okay.
Mr. Kotsopoulos?
Dear Mr. Chair, Jim is here. We'll just give him a minute to turn his audio on.
Okay, very good. There we go.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My apologies. Jim Kotsopoulos, 27 Fieldflower Crescent, Richmond Hill. On behalf of the applicant, Mr. Chair, for the property known as 4 Cynthia Crescent. Mr. Chair, the application before you this evening seeks 2 minor variances for the proposed construction of a detached garage located to the rear of the dwelling adjacent to the south lot line. Mr. Chair, we've reviewed the staff report. We don't have any issues with it, but I did want to explain a few things, Mr. Chair, with your indulgence. Firstly, over the last few weeks, we've had numerous discussions with city staff, Mr. Chair, which has resulted in a revised application. So the numbers in front of you tonight, Mr. Chair, are a reflection of those discussions with city staff that resulted in reductions in both the gross floor area as well as the maximum height of the proposed detached garage. In this case, Mr. Chair, in our opinion, the land mass is able to accommodate this structure at the rear. It makes for better streetscape. Otherwise, Mr. Chair, you would have had a situation where you could have had a 5-car garage dominate the streetscape. So this would allow the breakup to allow 3 cars on the main dwelling, and then of course the 2-car garage detached to the rear. Mr. Chair, also the location of this detached garage would allow the preservation of a number of mature trees along the south boundary line near the front lot line. And also, Mr. Chair, this neighborhood is also characteristic of larger single detached dwellings, including a recently constructed 5-car garage single detached abutting to the lands to the south. So those are my comments at this time, Mr. Chair. Would be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I ask our Secretary Treasurer whether we had any additional correspondence on this application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do not.
And do we have anyone in the audience wishing to address this application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do not.
Thank you. And do we have any further comments from planning?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no further comments.
Gentlemen, comments, questions, concerns? Nice looking garage. I'd like to have my shop in there. Anyhow, I would entertain a motion. Mr. Duretzi.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would move the minor variance application A037/20 at 4 Cynthia Crescent be approved, subject to the terms and conditions in the city's staff report.
Moved by Member Duretzi, seconded by Member Gossi. All in favor? I see 4 hands. It's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, members of the committee. Good night.
Good night. let us know, Jamie, when it's safe for us to proceed.
No problem. I'll be right back.
Thank you.